Hey guys, it's Bree. I hope you're having a fantastic week. I hope your Halloween weekend was awesome. And I wanted to talk about Luna New Moon by McDonald, which is this bad boy. This is a fantastic book. It is just beautifully executed and just so well put together. It's easily in my top favorites of books for the year. This version of the world takes place in the future, near future-ish. And in it, the moon has been kind of occupied or colonized. It's run by the Lunar Development Corporation, which is basically a holding company that has the land rights to the moon. It's occupied by families who run businesses on it, primarily mineral and gas mining. And on the moon, there is no criminal law. Basically, what has happened is they decided that they wanted to implement a system which was almost entirely based on either civil or contract law. This is a really interesting premise for me because it's an argument that I hear a lot as a way to kind of rectify the inequities in the justice system. The story revolves primarily around a family called the Cortas. They are from Brazil originally, and their matriarch, Adriana, moved up to the moon as a 30-year-old, just about. And there she built up a helium-3 mining company. Her family, the Cortas, eventually became a part of what are known as the Five Dragons, or the five big, almost aristocratic families that rule the moon, more or less. Everybody works for one of these five families, and they are ridiculous level of celebrities. They're the kind of wealthy that you could run your family into the ground for multiple generations and still have money left over. And in the story, it is very much about the generation after hers, her children, and her grandchildren, and whether or not they will be able to maintain their family and their family's business in the way that Adriana wants them to. And the family is kind of at the turning point. Adriana is kind of reaching the end of her life, and it's become very apparent to her, at least, that if her family is going to continue to be successful, if her business is going to continue to be successful, it's going to come down to how her children take over after she dies. And how they interact with the four other dragons among the dragon families. And all sorts of other kind of political intrigue is happening. Their children, the grandchildren, are being threatened with marriage, even though they're basically barely teens. Luna, the youngest, is not in her teen years yet. She's like 8. And there are just constant attacks and craziness happening. It's very much a Godfather feel in a lunar mining setting. If you were to put that to me before I read it, I would have been very hesitant going in. And I think that's because, generally speaking, I don't find a lot of multi-generational stories that are done in a way that I find well balanced. And I don't find a lot of stories with such a broad cast of characters often able to really build the characters the way I want to see it. There's not always as much character growth as I would like. If you had presented this story to me and said that explanation, I would have been very hesitant. It's often the case, I find, that stories that span multiple generations, and especially stories with lots of characters, oftentimes don't balance storylines very well, and the character growth is just not where I like the character growth to be. I really like character studies. I like things that delve into who the characters are and why they are that way and their relationships. But McDonald handles this masterfully. He's so good at composing the story in such a way that I didn't feel that any of the characters were being neglected. I didn't feel like I was being rushed through meeting them and learning who these characters were. On top of that, there's a lot of complexity in the kind of social political world. And that was something I was really interested to see. Like I said, I've heard the argument that we should go over to a civil and contract law kind of system as a way to rectify the justice system and make it more equitable, which I'm dubious about. I find that very, very suspicious as a claim. And even McDonald presents a world that's functional, but very flawed. So he takes this premise that's kind of tossed around as this kind of like quasi-libertarian solution that would fix everything, right? And he really breaks it apart and delves into, okay, what does it really mean to have a system that's run entirely on contract law? What does it mean when all that stands between me and somebody else's action is a contract that we may have? What does it mean for business if there's actually nothing to stop or penalize somebody from blowing up my factory? And he engages those in a way that's extremely dynamic and extremely revealing. I was reading it and I was like, my mind was blown at how well composed the story was. The plot is really engaging. It's very much about this family in a moment where they're at a tipping point. Their family is either going to survive and continue to succeed, or it's going to sink, and it's going to sink fast. And McDonald is really good at creating that sense of urgency, creating suspense around what's about to happen to these characters and to their lives and to their family, without being melodramatic. He's not, it doesn't feel artificial. It's very, very well done. And there's a real genuine sense of care in the characters. They all care about their family, right? This is one big family story. It's one big mafia family story, so to speak. And each of the characters really cares about what's going to happen to their family, but in their actions towards ensuring that their family has the best future possible, McDonald really takes the opportunity and reveals their weaknesses as people, and shows that we can be well-meaning and extremely flawed and extremely off base on our conclusions, and that doesn't make us bad people. The characters and the world that he creates are extremely vicious, extremely raw. You know, there is no criminal system, so I could kill somebody in theory in this world, and there's nothing really to stop me except for the thought that I might be forced into labor or into debt because of my actions, or somebody might challenge me in a battle to the death if that were the case. There is dueling in this, and one of the best scenes in the last 50 pages is a dueling scene. It's so good, so good. You know, and the results, that was an aside, the result of this world and this system is extremely vicious. And McDonald is good, I think, at creating that sense of hostility and unsteadiness in the world without seeming like he's not straw manning the argument, so to speak. He's not building up this kind of weak argument for contract law being the dominant system and then just kind of tearing apart this man made of straw. He's actually kind of going in and tearing it apart, and I thought it was really, really well done. This is one of the few books of the year that I've given 5 stars. One of the few. I'm not easily impressed because I really like a good balance of plot and character development and kind of philosophical inquiry in my books, and I don't find that there are many books that do all of that well. This book does all of that well. It was just so well balanced. I keep saying that. It's really well balanced, really well developed. If you're looking for an engaging read, this is definitely a good place to go. It has some really interesting, kind of more hard sci-fi aspects to it, but they're minimal. They're like accents to this story. Where he's showing just enough detail in the technology to kind of show that this is a feasible world without being overwhelmingly kind of technical like something like Seven Eves would be. It's just a really, really well done story, and I'm glad I read it. I encourage all of you to read it. And that's basically all I have to say about it. I was so impressed. I was sitting there, I was reading this over my lunch hour, and I was like eating the book up, laughing out loud at places, creeping my coworkers out like I occasionally do. I hope you pick it up. If you've read it, let me know what you thought. If you're planning on reading it, let me know that too. I'm interested. I hope you're having a fantastic reading week. I'll talk to you later. Bye.